Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about a brand new self-titled album, Wormwitch, from a band called Wormwitch. It's a Canadian black metal summer weekend party of sorts here at the Metal Meltdown, I guess, because right after talking about some emotionally charged, contemplative black gaze and post-black metal from my neck of the woods, Toronto, Ontario, we're now going all the way to the West Coast to talk about some more classic, old-school style black metal from Vancouver, British Columbia, from Wormwitch, who I've more or less been following pretty much since their inception. I remember when their debut, Strike Mortal Soil, came out in 2017, and I was a big fan in particular of their sophomore album, Heaven That Dwells Within, released in 2019, probably one of the best black metal records that was released that year. I loved how rich and atmospheric and organic that record was. I loved how it brought in influences from like second wave old school black metal and, you know, some more modern bands, like some elements I would find in something from like Wolves in the Throne Room, for instance. Love the use of fantasy and folklore elements, had a bit of a melodic black metal kind of underbelly to it at times, which I also liked. It was fresh and exciting and dark and, you know, just an all-around great black metal record. I wasn't as big into the follow-up, Wolf Hex, but I think I'm kind of in the minority there because I remember when that came out, there were a lot of people really loving that thing. And I will say, even if it's my personal least favorite from Wormwitch, it's still a damn fine record. With all of this in mind, I went into this album with, I would say, pretty reasonably high-ish expectations. I was concerned a little bit when I learned that this was a self-titled album, which, frankly, for some reason can end up being the kiss of death for some albums. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe there's like some kind of curse around self-titled albums. I don't know. There are exceptions to the rule. Obviously, Metallica, for fucking instance, but for the most part, when I see a self-titled album, I start to get a little nervous. And I guess, to be fair, depending on who you ask, Metallica's self-titled album is, you know, maybe not that much of a smash hit of a record, but whatever. We're getting off topic. This ain't about Metallica. This is about Wormwitch. Wormwitch are a great Canadian black metal band, and this is a great Canadian black metal record. All of my expectations have been met, I feel. It's everything that I love and that I want from Wormwitch and from just really great modern black metal in general. It still has that rich, organic, natural sound that I love from Heaven That Dwells Within. I think it's a lot more immediate and a lot more engaging than Wolf Hex. There's also just like a lot more to it. Like, it's not a totally unpredictable or wild or hyper ambitious record, but it does have enough like few little twists and turns here and there and some extra spices and flavors to make this feel a little bit more varied and to make it feel a little bit more fresh and vibrant. And I will say, too, overall, I would be willing to make the argument for this being Wormwitch's, like, most brutal offering to date. Like, this thing is pretty fucking vicious, pretty cutthroat at times. I mean, that opening cut, Fugitive Serpent especially, just rampages and assaults and attacks like an actual crazed serpent. I mean, these powerful, potent strikes and towering displays of, you know, non-stop, uncompromising battering ram black metal percussion and stormy riffage and consuming, screaming, howling vocals. It almost has like kind of this death metal kind of heaviness and intensity to it. I wouldn't say that this is like a blackened death metal number. I'm not going to say that Wormwitch have gone into a blackened death metal direction, but it's undeniable how much more extreme this is and how much more immediate this is in comparison to other Wormwitch records and numbers in the past. And it maintains this intensity even when it starts to slow down a little bit and transition into some different kind of rhythms and transition into some different kind of grooves. Like right around the midway point of this, you have some especially cathartic, bouncy little black metal grooves that add a lot of energy and momentum to this. And closing out the track, you have these slower, kind of elongated passages with a lot of anguish and anxiety and like just total fucking black metal fire. The following number in Venom does a great job at maintaining this momentum. A lot of like really old school, like classic black metal influence here. I mean, between the static and the feedback in the very opening and those very like stormy, stark black metal riffs and those like screeching vocals and some of those like synths in the back, I'm reminded of like some classic mayhem, like Death Crush meets like Dom Satanis de Mysteries. And there's also like a really like scorching guitar solo that feels on par with something I would hear on like a Behemoth record. From here on, the path is pretty clear. The trajectory of this album is easy to follow. The recipe, easy to read. But, you know, like I said, there's enough little things here and there that keep things fresh and varied and vibrant enough. The helm and the bow, for instance, has some super satisfying, gnarly little triplet grooves and these chunky little barrages thrown in that give this a little bit of extra swing and pep in its step. Then there's Bright and Poisonous, which throws in some Emperor-style synth work on the latter half. Very cold, very chilling, does a great job at making this song feel larger than life and really important and really powerful. Dare I argue, too, some slightly punky riffage in the middle of this track, sandwiched in between some crazed, ritualistic black metal. I don't know, it kind of sounds kind of punky to me. Call it what you want. It's pretty cool, pretty gnarly. I like the contrast here. I like the color. I think my favorite cut on the record, though, might be Worm's Blood Necromancy, which probably switches things up the most out of everything here. Like, it's a very slow and stewy kind of cut, which really takes its time to build and mix everything and create a lot of tension and atmosphere. Like, you have these slower, mid-pace black metal beatdowns with, like, sinister, cackling vocals and this, like, very fiery guitar work. You do have some more explosive moments and barrages here and there, don't get me wrong, but you know, there's often a lot of build-up to these moments, and as such, they also have a lot more catharsis. They're a lot more satisfying as a result of that. Like, the whole song just has the feel and vibe of being in some kind of necromantic ritual of sorts, you know? Like, I'm watching the whole process from step one to conclusion. A close runner-up, though, would be Draconic Sorciness Canadian Witch Nights. Not just because of that objectively awesome title, but also because it closes out this album on a really sinister and satisfying note. There's some really dark, twisted, guitar-driven melodies and leads here especially, which I'm really digging. Love seeing that more melodic side of the band come back into play, but like with a more fucked up kind of side, you know, a little bit more acid and spite and vile. I will say, unfortunately, the album does stutter and stumble a little bit in the very middle. Some sections feel a little bit too samey for my liking, and on top of that, it just loses its edge and its fire thanks to these unnecessary acoustic segments and sections kind of thrown in. Like, you could very easily cut the acoustic intro to Inner War and the entirety of the acoustic interlude, Salamander, and in my opinion, lose absolutely nothing of value. Overall, though, I would say that I really enjoyed this record. I don't like it as much as Heaven That Dwells Within. That's still my favorite from Wormwitch, but I do like it more than Wolf Hex. I'm feeling a very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5 on this one. I think everyone sounds great, and they're putting 110%. Production is really good on this. Production-wise, maybe even it's one of the better black metal records of the year, I would say. Like, everything just has so much body. Vocals especially, too. I love those cackling vocals. I love those sinister growls. I love those howls and screams. There's surprisingly a lot of range to the black metal vocals here. I think had the acoustic sections been more effective, or in my opinion just been stripped entirely, we'd be looking at a 4 because there really is a lot of great stuff on here. But hey, ain't nothing wrong with a very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5, in my opinion. If you love black metal, old school and modern, then I think you're really going to enjoy this. If you love Canadian black metal, if you've been following Wormwitch and you know what they're about, I think you're going to enjoy this as well. I think you'll also appreciate the darker, more sinister aura and vibe of this thing. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I am not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. Look, more videos. That's so crazy. How'd they get there? And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.